Good day, class 9. We still continue with history, and now we will go on and read that Hitler believed that resources were to be accumulated or gathered through expansion of territory. So, what did he do? In 1939, he invaded Poland, which resulted in a war with England and France. In 1940, a tripartite pact. Tripartite means three countries involved. So, a tripartite pact was signed between Germany, Italy, and Japan. This pact strengthened Hitler's claim to power. By the end of 1940, Hitler was at his peak of power. So, what did he do? He wanted to conquer Eastern Europe. Why? He wanted to ensure food supplies and living space for Germans. Earlier we found, before the Great Depression, we found that Eastern Europe grew a lot of wheat. But during the wartime, this supply of wheat was cut off, in fact. Right? So, Hitler knew that Eastern Europe would be a good supplier of food grains. And therefore, he wanted to conquer Eastern Europe, and which would ensure regular food supplies, and also Germany or the Germans would have a larger space to live in. So he attacked the Soviet Union. And when he attacked the Soviet Union in June 1941, this was a blunder. The real mistake made by Hitler. Now, why was this a blunder? Why was this a mistake? Because he exposed the German Western Front to British aerial bombing, and the Eastern Front to the powerful Soviet armies. So, what was the result? Germany met with a crushing defeat at Stalingrad. The German army began to retreat, means to move back. The US resisted involvement in the war, as it was not willing to face all the economic problems once again. You remember when this happened during the First World War. However, due to Japan's increasing threats on the US and the support to Hitler, US entered the Second World War. The war ended in 1945 with Hitler's defeat, and the US dropping the atom bomb on Hiroshima in Japan. This is when Hitler and his propaganda minister, as we have read earlier in the introduction of the chapter, when Hitler and his propaganda minister committed suicide in his bunker in Berlin. Now we move on to the Nazi world view. The crimes the Nazis committed were linked to a system of belief and a set of practices. So Nazi ideology and Hitler's world view were synonymous, side by side. So what was Hitler's worldview? According to Hitler, there was no equality between people, but only a racial hierarchy. That is, blonde blue-eyed Nordic German Aryans were at the top, while the Jews were at the lowest rung or the lowest level. They were regarded as an anti-race, and the colored people were placed in between depending upon their external features. So, from here you can get the fact that Hitler, uh, you can say, divided society according to the looks, according to external features of people. Second, Hitler's racism came from Charles Darwin and Herbert Spencer. These were natural scientists, or you can say philosophers, who tried to explain the creation of plants and animals through the concept of evolution and natural selection. But what caught Hitler's eye was the idea of Herbert Spencer, where he said that the fittest would survive. And here it says, according to Spencer, only those species survived on Earth that could adapt themselves to the changing conditions, meaning survival of the fittest. So the Nazi argument was simple. The strongest race would survive and the weaker would perish. Third, another ideology was Lebensraum. Now, Lebensraum means living space. You know why Hitler had attacked Eastern Europe? Because not only for the regular supply of grains, food grains, but also a living space for the Germans. Thus, new territories must be acquired for settlement, and therefore Hitler thought that new territories must be acquired for settlement. It would also enhance material resources and power of the German nation. Therefore, Hitler intended to extend German boundaries by moving eastwards. Now, the Nazis were quick to create an exclusive racial community of pure Germans. How could this be achieved? According to Hitler, it could be achieved by physically elimination of the undesirable in the extended empire. That means get rid of them. Only pure, healthy Nordic Aryans were considered desirable. This also meant that Germans who were seen as impure had no right to exist. The Nazi officials had condemned to death many Germans who were considered mentally or physically unfit. Jews and Gypsies were classified as undesirable and inferior. Now, why did Hitler, or why was Hitler so against the Jews and the Gypsies? Only he knew that. Of course, there were reasons given, but they are just, you can say, excuses. He may have had other reasons too. They were widely persecuted, and so were the Russians and the Poles. The Polish civilians from Poland, they are called Poles. So when Germany occupied Poland and parts of Russia, the captured civilians were made to work as slaves and died simply through hard work and starvation. The Jews were the worst sufferers. Now here comes reasons why Hitler hated the Jews, why there was a propaganda spread in Germany of hating the Jews. The Jews were accused as the killers of Christ. They were barred from owning land. They were traders and moneylenders. They lived in separately marked areas called ghettos. Hitler's hatred for Jews was based that conversion was no solution to the Jewish problem. It could be solved only through total elimination. That is, kill them by the thousands. Eliminate them from the face of the earth. Between 1933 and 1938, the Nazis terrorized and segregated Jews, compelling them to leave the country. And between 1939 and 1945, while the Second World War was on, the aim was to gather them in a certain area and finally kill them in gas chambers in Poland.